Everybody, and welcome again. Thank you for holding on for an extra few minutes so we can get the stragglers into the session there. And thanks for joining us today and giving the time to listen to us look at a presentation from Blackbird and LiveU about our partnership. We're going to talk to you for about 30 minutes or so. We're going to have a look at a demo for both of these systems and talk about, obviously why we're working together and what we can achieve there. But there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. If you look at the bottom of the webinar session, you'll see there's a Q&A button. Just type them in as we go. We'll either reply to you in the text or we'll save them and we'll come back and answer those questions towards the end of the session. I'd like to thank Chris Perry for joining us today. Chris, hi, how are you?
Hey, Ollie, good to see you today. I'm well. Thanks for having me here.
Good, excellent. So Chris is the Senior Director of Product Management at LiveU. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Blackbird, and we're really looking forward to discussing today a bit more about what our partnership means and how we work together as I said. So we announced a partnership between Blackbird and LiveU earlier this year. You may have also seen us talking a little bit about a joint project that we've worked on over a few points in this year on the elections in Germany, most recently in September with the national elections there. And we can dig into a bit more detail on that project as we go through the demo today as well. But essentially, we're looking really at what kind of problems are we each solving in the direction that we've moved in. What are the common touch points there that make this a good partnership, and what does that mean most importantly to you? So I think from the Blackbird side, we've certainly seen editing and content creation push closer and closer to live production workflows and to acquisition. We've also seen this coming with other requirements around then remote and distributed access to those feeds, the ability to scale that easily, which was is a key aspect of the German election project, and most importantly as well, open up collaborative workflows too. So we'll go through and talk about some of these points, and as I'll repeat myself again, please do chuck questions in if you want us to address those there. So before we get stuck into the demos, I think we've got a good group of people here. Hopefully, a lot of you are reasonably familiar with Blackbird and LiveU, but we don't like to assume that everyone knows what we're doing. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes and introduce the two kind of companies to you, and then we'll share our screen and we'll get stuck into the interesting stuff. So, Chris, if you'd like, you can pinch the screen share off me and tell us a little bit about LiveU and about the solutions that we're talking about today.
Great, thanks, Ollie. So, as Ollie mentioned, my name is Chris Perry. I'm a senior product manager here at LiveU, responsible for our cloud platforms. And one of those cloud platforms is the LiveU Matrix platform. The LiveU Matrix platform is our content management platform. We look at Matrix as much more of a content platform, even though it's very focused on routing and moving live video around. And one of those destinations is obviously Blackbird, and we've been very proud to be able to work with them, both on the German elections project that Ollie mentioned, as well as some other projects that have come down the pipe. So we wanted to talk for a sec. What is LiveU Matrix? It basically consists of two major components. One is this powerful editorial front end. We like to say it's designed by broadcasters for content providers. It is designed as a single pane of glass interface, heavily focused on content discovery and usability. We're really trying to make it easy to find what you're looking for and then move that video through the system. To that end, we deal obviously with a lot of news customers. We're looking at an efficiency-oriented feature set. It's designed to be extremely easy to use and very quick to find what you're looking for, right? Seconds count in breaking news situations. And Matrix is oriented to that end. The second component of Matrix is the fully managed IP cloud service that sits behind it. So, this is the plumbing, if you will, that you don't see, but really is what makes Matrix special. It's a reliable and cost-effective service. It's based off of our proven technology, which is the LRT protocol, LiveU Reliable Transport, and it follows a lot of the common SAT-based concepts. So we took what broadcasters know and understand today with regard to routing and distribution, and we just applied that directly into our cloud platform. most importantly, we look at it as having distribution as a service. So these different components, right, the power of the cloud and the mission critical availability, really giving customers the flexibility to do just about anything without having to worry about CPU limitations or bandwidth, the elasticity that the cloud brings, the ability to go from a small scale to a very large scale quickly is critical in today's day and age, and allows us to be on the edge of technology, right? Amazon is doing a lot of work for us. They release new products and services every single day, and we're always excited when that happens because we can bring those benefits to our customers very quickly. We also have a 24/7 network operations team that's focused on availability, uptime monitoring, as well as, it pairs very nicely with our software and hardware infrastructure. Matrix, in many cases for our customers, is a drop-on architecture. It sits atop an existing LiveU setup. You don't need to install special hardware in order to start using Matrix. You can use any existing LiveU hardware that you might have available on site today. This is just a very quick snapshot into the Matrix platform, and Ollie, I'll throw it back over to you so that you can talk about how Blackbird fits into this picture.
Really, thanks, Chris. I think it's pretty obvious as well when you talk about Matrix like that almost every aspect of it has been designed to take advantage of the inherent benefits of cloud, which is very obviously where Blackbird is focused as well in terms of taking advantage of everything that the cloud can offer. And in that regard, as an introduction to Blackbird, I'm sure that everyone on here has an idea that we're a cloud-based video editing and content creation tool. But essentially, Blackbird has been designed specifically to be able to perform functions with video in a web browser that you can't do with any other technology. So this is the ability to integrate into existing infrastructures, whether that's on-premise or in the cloud, access archive file-based content or live streams, and to be able to create from them from anywhere with a variety of different tool sets and then publish that out. So there's three main tenets that we look at with Blackbird when we're talking to our customers. The desire for speed, and obviously this is particularly important when we're in workflows looking at live sports and live news, where getting content out quickly is particularly important. Flexibility, and this is, as I say, not just around the obvious things to do with availability of cloud and remote working, but also the flexibility to enable multiple people and multiple departments within a business to get to content and perform a relevant task to them, and efficiency. And the Blackbird technology certainly allows efficiency across a variety of areas to do with, as we've seen, speed and productivity, but also infrastructure. And we can talk a bit more as we get into the demo about how these solutions fit together from an infrastructure point of view and some of the cost benefits and sustainability benefits that come with that. And as a testament to that, I suppose Blackbird's been working with some of the biggest names in the broadcast and media industry, everything from sports teams up to through leagues and federations, sports and news broadcasters, as well as corporates and other types of video creation tools. But one thing that is very close to Blackbird's heart is how we work with partners, particularly. We are always a piece of a chain to do with creating content, whatever it might be. So that's we really do try and make sure that we're working with the best in the industry to put some workflows together that can be more than the sum of the parts, as it were. Anyway, that's enough about us. Let's show you some actual interfaces and see how this all works. So we're gonna essentially follow the content through this process. So I'm going to throw back over to Chris, and we're going to look at the streams coming through the systems there before we get obviously into the actual for Blackbird. So Chris, you should be able to pinch the screen back again.
Great. So what, I could go for hours and hours about Matrix and what it's capable of doing, but for right now, I want to highlight a couple of things within this interface. So I'll jump back and forth between this and a live interface. This is a demo interface that we've got up and running right now. But what you can see here is a series of columns. Each one of these columns operates a little differently but it allows you to see content, in this case, that's available. That's what's in this feeds column here. And this is really where we start talking about the content workflow, right? It all originates either from the field or from a station somewhere, and you need the ability to preview that content. You might know exactly what you're looking for or what something's called. So you have search and filter functionality so that you can filter the available content right within this interface in order to find exactly what you're looking for. And then if you find something, anywhere in this UI, you can always click it and get a low resolution, but an HLS preview within the platform with audio and video. So we very much designed Matrix for scale. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to slide over. This is one of our live environments. One of our customers that we work with is CBS NewsPath. And they have lots and lots and lots of feeds available right now. They've got over 111 sources that are available to them at this moment. And so the platform is designed to scale up quite large, but obviously in smaller environments, we can also see exactly what's going on. And I will continue working in a sandbox demo here. The second column over here is what we call local receivers. So these would be channels in LiveU's infrastructure that are under your control. These could be physical output channels in the case of something like SDI or NDI. These could be cloud channels that output NDI, SRT, or RTMP. And any of these channels are technically capable of feeding Blackbird. And so what we've actually set up here is a couple of receivers that I'm able to basically route from this using a drag and drop. Zoom sort of murders the drag and drop, but I can drag and drop that over. I can give it a slug if I want. I can say whether or not this has an end time, and I can hit OK. And then Matrix does all of the routing. So from a content person's perspective, we've architected this to be extremely easy to use, right? You could teach any intern at any broadcast or sports station anywhere in the world in 5 minutes. Go find the content that you're looking for, you can preview it, and then you can drag and drop that, and that will initiate the session downstream. So in this case, I've now got 2 sessions in this particular demo that have been initiated towards the Blackbird editing platform. And Ollie will show you in a few minutes how those streams are ingested and edited. Now, on the right-hand side of the screen, we have basically outbound feeds. So if this is inbound from another station to yourself, this might be ingesting, as I said, into Blackbird. We can then also turn these feeds around and send them back out. So if you work with a pool of stations, you can choose to send a video to a group of stations that you might be working with in a pool configuration. If you're working with a more syndicated type distribution model, you could also put those on a distribution channel that would go to, again, a list of stations that would be receiving that feed. So there's lots of different models that Matrix is capable of enabling. From the perspective of the user interface, everything you see here, this is the UI, right? It is what we call a single pane of glass. It's designed to be visual. It's flexible. I can turn columns on and off as I need to see more things or see less things. And so there's lots of usability features in the platform to really map out exactly what a given user of the platform would need to be able to do. We've got mapping features where you can actually do things like plot units on maps. You can actually click on them and you can see, that they're preview audio and video. I can even do things like add weather overlays to this so that I can see, where storm systems are in relationship to a given event, right? Weather is obviously one of those things that is covered live quite a bit by our customer base. And Matrix is a tool that you can actually use to monitor that it's raining right now in the greater Portland area and that this unit is located nearby. So lots of other things within the platform, but at this point, Ollie, I'll throw it back over to you to show the other end of this, right? We've now gone through the first step, acquisition. We've now turned that around and you should be receiving those feeds inside of the Blackbird demo setup that we have.
Excellent, thanks, Chris. And that's very cool. I hadn't seen the weather overlay.
It's a nifty little feature. We can even map hurricanes and typhoons on there too. So, you know, sometimes when there's big weather events, there's 30 or 40 units along the Gulf Coast of the United States, and you know, they're all out there collecting live pictures.
Excellent. That's great. That is cool. Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll carry on this following this content through. So I'm what you're looking at here is me sat inside what we call the Blackboard Control Center. And I'm not going to get stuck into administrative layers of the platform here at this point, because I don't want everyone to fall asleep. But essentially, it's a good place to start, because Blackboard is an entirely cloud-based platform. So not only the user level, but at the configuration and administration level as well. So that gives me the ability to come in here and normally set up my users and my usage statistics, my publishing and input options. But as Chris said, in this workflow that we're looking at today, it's actually completely hands-off for the users. So if I come through to the Blackbird editor here, we'll see that I've got automatically streams flowing into my folder structure, my file structure within the platform here, with no input from me as a user at all. Now, that's essentially to do with the configuration and the setup that we've got between Blackbird and LiveU Matrix here. And the other thing, which we can come back to and answer some questions and talk about a little bit in more detail, is the actual infrastructure behind this. But first of all, we'll grab a bit of content and we'll make something. So as you can see inside here, I've got files that are associated to my accounts. I can have multiple projects or accounts within the platform, and I've got a library of content. These are actually streams where we had around 20 or 20 plus streams from different contributors coming into these accounts, into this library for multiple broadcasters to access on the German elections project. So every broadcaster and every entity has their own distinct files and folders and accounts and users and publishing and branding and everything like that. They can all collaborate and share on the live streams at the same time. And any content that I've got in here, I can just drag and drop and bring over here and access instantly. So as you'll see, I can have immediate full frame jog and shuttle access to this content. Blackbird is completely non-linear and completely instant access to every single frame of an unlimited amount of content. So, I'm looking at a couple of live streams that Chris is feeding me, but I could also have access as a user here to my entire archive or library of footage that sits inside an asset management platform, or even legacy content that might be in an on-premise storage server. There's really no limitations around what I'm using, what I'm accessing, and what I'm editing. The reason for that being that we're a browser-based access point for the user, which is separate from the actual media infrastructure. So there's no need to move any content anywhere or kind of set up custom infrastructure for the users. Now, when I pop to the end of this stream that Chris is sending me here, you'll see as I work in this area, this content's actually going to chunk in front of me. There we go, there's one. And I'm now actually viewing, editing, and publishing this content, normally just a few seconds, maybe 4 or 5 seconds behind live. So when we talked before about the efforts to take essentially what is a post-production function as close to live and as close to acquisition as possible, we're there. So you may have noticed I've started off here in a reasonably simple user interface. This is something that's used by a lot of our customers within social media and digital teams to do very, very fast turnaround and simple content creation. So I can play this stream, and if I see something, a particular clip or a particular moment that I want, I'm just going to hit a hotkey, or I can come back here and use big fat mark in and out buttons, and I drag and drop and publish a clip. Okay, and that's it. Now, if I drag and drop onto a social output, I'm going to get the contextualized and relevant metadata input for that. But essentially, for a user, all I do is I select my piece of content, and I could have easily actioned a publish of a clip here within 10 seconds of live. So you've got to remember as well that this, I'm one user logging in and looking at this stream. You could have 1,000 users working on this at the same time. There would be no infrastructure change to make that happen. So very, very easy, very low bandwidth, and very scalable access to this media for non-technical users to be able to quickly and easily start to create content. Now, if I want to do something a little more complicated, I'm going to change my view. And I'm still in a reasonably simple layout here, but I'm just going to grab a couple of bits of content and pop them in this waterfall shot. And I can actually start to now build a sequence of media. Now I'm working on a particular live stream here, but we've got obviously a variety of content coming into the platform here. There's some streams that Chris had sent in to me earlier. I think he was trying to challenge my editing skills, sending me some cartoons to pop in here. But we'll chuck some of these clips in. And as I say, there's no limitation between mixing and matching the streams that we've got with multiple streams or files or anything like that. We actually have some of our sports customers managing multiple streams at the same time in a multicam kind of setup, which is a really easy way for people to sit on not maybe produced camera feeds, but actual raw camera feeds and edit highlights packages and things like that as they go. Okay, so I've grabbed a few pieces of content here, and as you can see, because everything we do is rendered real time in the browser session itself, I've got an instant and accurate preview of the content that I've created here. And again, if I want to publish this, all I do is I drag and drop and I publish it to wherever I want that to go. I should mention as well that when we're configuring this, we not only want to simplify things for the user on the ingest side, in the workflows to do with finding and using content, but on the publishing as well. So, this is, for me as a user, I'm selecting the destination I want to send this clip to. I'm not worrying about where the source is, what the format is, or the quality settings, or even branding. Every one of my publish buttons can automatically put on logo overlays, pre and post roll bumpers, and things like that. So before I move on from this view, I'll also mention that we're talking about collaboration a bit today. This view is also used quite a lot for collaborative workflows, because not only can we have multiple accounts, multiple people working on the same source feeds, but obviously because we're cloud-based and just sat in a browser session here, there's no such thing as project syncing or timeline locking or syncing or any of those issues that you normally get with application-based editors. One person can sit and make selections of content, either in the easy thumbnail view like this, or in a timecode-based clipping and metadata view like this. And then another user can log in and work with them or carry on from that to come in and actually finish that content. So I'll move through now in that vein to what you'll probably recognize as a more traditional nonlinear edit timeline. And I've got my sequence here in a fully real-time, frame-accurate, non-destructive editor. So again, what we're doing here is a true NLE experience. We're not moving clips with handles or anything like that. Any one of these pieces of media I've got can trim out as far as that piece of source goes. Again, regardless of whether that's live stream or file or where that may exist. And now I'm in the editor, I can start to do something, a little more complex. So again, I'm still sat with immediate access to the LiveU streams that are coming in. Anything that's being handled by Matrix in the live workflow can be accessible to me here. And at any point in time, I can still publish from my source stream just with a simple drag and drop. But I can also now, just a few seconds behind live, start to create some more complex pieces of content. So here we've got the addition of real-time transitions, full independent video and audio control for J and L cuts and things like that within the content here. Maybe I'll add a video and audio transition onto that one. And tools that normal editors expect, like the ability to come in and slip content if I've caught a shot change and so on. Now, one thing you will notice about Blackbird is that it's pretty simple UI. We don't have any drop downs and menus to learn. So it's designed to be very intuitive as well. If I hover my cursor over the center here, we go a bi-directional trim. If I go to the side, it's going to go one directional. And equally, I can easily come in and just pull on the audio here. So I'll do a quick fade up into the start of my audio session out of the scenic shot at the beginning of the track there. Now, we've done a little bit of editing on our content there. And I talked about automatic branding, but we can also do that manually as well. So as well as access to the actual content itself, those live streams, I can obviously have any kind of supporting media that I might want within my infrastructure here as well. So I'm going to bring a sting in to the timeline here. That's just an animating intro into my piece of content. And I'm just going to drag the corner out here and do a color fade from black up into there. And on the end here, actually, we've, as well as using defined pieces of media like that, we can easily have actual kind of pre-built edit functions within the platform here. So I'm going to pull this onto my third and fourth audio tracks, and that's pre-built with a fade into audio under my pictures, and then a fade up onto my actual end board and my sting on the way out there as well. So there's lots of functions like that that are really designed, again, to make this super easy and fast for the users, regardless of how complex that content needs to be. Now, we don't have time to go through absolutely every feature today, but I'll go a little bit further, because so far we've stuck here on single audio and video track, and we've brought in a bit of branding overlay on the end here. But actually, Blackbird supports up to 16 video layers and 32 audio layers, and any one of those can be used for overlays and branding or actual video content. So if I grab, I'm going to grab another piece here and pull it on. Let's track that down onto our second track there. I can now come in and start to manipulate these full transparency control over these for vertical editing up through my layers. But if I pop this open, you'll also see I've got some effects tracks too. So this gives me the ability to do real-time, keyframeable position and scale control over my media. We can even come in and do color correction, so I can tweak my white level or my black level and hue and saturation and things like that within the content here. And there's other functions that apply into certain use cases a lot, like such as a real-time keyframeable blurring. Obviously, that's really important when we look at news workflows and so on. So I've got a really high level of control over any piece of media on any layer. And as I mentioned, because of the multicam support and because of the scale controls, you can actually go anything up to all 16 of those sources in a picture-in-picture view if you want, or any configuration like that. So it's a very powerful and very flexible way of controlling your media. And that is the same for audio. So this piece of content brought some audio onto my third and fourth tracks here. If I pop this open, we've got full keyframeable pan and level control, where I can add my own custom keyframes to do dips and mixes. I can unlock and unsync audio and video. So if you need to offset different commentary tracks for timing on sports highlights packages and things like that, that's all possible as well. And any of this thing, anything that we're talking about today can be set up as simple macros and hotkeys too. So the concept here is not just about access and speed, but putting the tools into the hands of the users that allow them to create great looking content fast from anywhere. Now, beyond this, we support lots of other effects and options within the edit here, multiple burnt-in subtitle tracks, multiple metadata-based closed caption tracks as well. I can even hit this microphone here and directly down onto my timeline in a voiceover function as well. So again, very, very powerful editor. And everything I do, everything that you've seen today, is rendered real time inside my actual browser session. Okay, so there's no remote server. I'm not connected to another machine. There's nothing kicking me previews out in the background. It's all real time rendered, which is why it's so responsive and it's so efficient on the connectivity point. Now, when I'm done, exactly the same as before, all I do is I drag and drop and I push my publish to a publish button, and off that job goes to be rendered on that core infrastructure. And I think that's there's probably a good point for me to stop talking, and we'll come back and take some questions. But I think before I pull some questions up from the Q&A, Chris, that might be a good moment to ask you to describe a little bit about the infrastructure that we actually had in place on the German election projects. Because I think one thing that I find sometimes is that when we talk about multiple platforms or solutions like this in the cloud, there's an assumption that you have to send all of your content to each one of them in order to use them. And obviously that's not the case. We don't want to duplicate and move media around where it's not necessary. So yeah, if you don't mind, give us a little couple of minutes on what the setup looked like for the German election projects. That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, I've even got a slide on it that I can pull up here. So the collaborative component here was definitely important. And in the case where all broadcasters in Germany actually had equal access to that content, there was no exclusivity problems. And so they divided up the different party locations, the different headquarters, the different podiums, and they deployed LiveU units into the field. in this case, we've done this a couple of different times. We've done it with 16. I think this last cycle we did something over 20 different locations, 22, I think, locations that were deployed around the country with LiveU gear that was in the field that was streaming back to the Matrix platform, as well as then streaming onto the other networks. So there's a broadcast component to this before we even get into the actual trimming, clipping, publishing in Blackbird. There's a broadcast component where you've got these N number of locations, right? It could be very small. We could be talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be talking 100 locations, right? The scale is virtually infinite. That publishes to the cloud and Matrix, and then everyone's able to go in and redistribute that back down to a physical on-premise server that's outputting SDI into their production workflow. So there's a production piece to this as well, right? All of the broadcasters are on at the same time, and they're all distributing this content as basically a pool of content within the Matrix platform. Now, at the same time, we're also then publishing back down into Blackbird, or up into Blackbird, depending on the direction that you're looking at this. Blackbird we're doing that capture on those ingest, those edge servers, also running in the cloud. So there's an efficiency there, right? We're going from one cloud setup directly into another cloud setup. And then they were able to share that content in Blackbird. So instead of all of these broadcasters having, 6 or 12 copies of everything, there was one source master that everyone was then editing against for each one of these discrete feeds. So it was an amazing project that really showed the power of the cloud, the scale, and the efficiency that we can get when you combine these two workflows together.
Excellent, thanks, Chris. I think as well, it's worth saying just from the a little from the Blackbird side. Essentially, the way that Blackbird operates is that we separate the ingest and the published function, which sits wherever the media infrastructure is, from the user side, which is what actually sits in the core cloud. So on this project, the Blackbird Edge that Chris mentioned, which is essentially our media engine, if you think of it like that, for ingest and publishing, was sat inside the same AWS instance as Matrix and all of the streams. So none of those LiveU streams are coming out of a cloud instance and into a different cloud or into a different location. It's actually contained entirely within one piece of infrastructure. And for us, that could be any cloud provider or even on-premise or private data centers. It really doesn't matter. The concept is that wherever the live workflow is, or wherever the storage infrastructure is, essentially whatever your media infrastructure is, we're going to fit into that. We're not going to make you move it, duplicate it, and shift around that content, which is where a lot of the efficiencies come from in how we operate that.
And in this particular example, Ollie, some of this wouldn't have even been feasible without Matrix and Blackbird paired together, because in order to record 16 or 22 locations, you would need physical hardware on-prem, right? To pull that down, you need the bandwidth to downlink it, if you will, from the cloud. You need the hardware to be able to record it. That needs to then go into the MAM systems. It's just not feasible for this scale of event. And so in this case, this was the perfect fit because we were able to use the cloud, distribute it through Matrix, and then ingest it directly into Blackbird. And from the customer's perspective, there was nothing to install. That was the best part, right? It's a zero footprint installation.
Absolutely. They just log in and off they go. Chris, now we've got a few questions coming into the chat here, and there's a few questions coming in the Q&A side that I'm going to throw to you as well here. I talked a bit then about the Blackbird ingest and Blackbird Edge running in multiple different locations. Can Matrix and this setup exist on-premise as well as in the cloud that we're talking about right now?
Yeah, so the Matrix backbone can basically run in any cloud environment. We use a couple of different cloud providers ourselves. We use both AWS and Oracle, but we've definitely run parts of the Matrix backbone across all of the major clouds. But you can also run that across physical hardware as well. So if there was some reason that you needed to do that, you can run it on run the media delivery layer on physical on-prem hardware. The other thing is that both in terms of publishing into Blackbird, you could publish from a local machine that's actually a physical machine directly into Blackbird, or you can come off the back of Matrix into Blackbird. So, you've got lots of different options in terms of where that feed can get picked up. It can either get picked off of Matrix or off of physical on-prem server.
Excellent. We've got a couple of questions here about someone asking whether on the German election project, whether they did switch between live and recorded clip media. I can say on that one, in terms of the content production, it was predominantly live. But what we did have was within the accounts for each of the broadcasters or each of the companies using that service, they had their own closed file-based media. Most of that was additional content, branding assets, and so on. So yeah, they did switch between live and non-live content. But in terms of the actual news media itself, it was predominantly coming from those 20+ live streams that were running into the system there. Chris, we've got a question about the bit rates of the streams. So rather than that specific, I guess I'll throw that open and we'll talk a bit about what kind of options you've got around stream inputs, qualities, and so on there.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start on our side of things. Our field units are capable of streaming up to 20 megabits per second. So we can talk about very, very high quality, high bit rate contribution into the Matrix platform, as well as distribution out of the Matrix platform, and even ingress into the Blackbird Edge components. So you've got very high bit rate, high quality feeds that are existing in infrastructure that's capable of handling it. One of the other pieces going the other direction is that our units, our hardware units, are designed to ride through difficult network conditions. And so we can also stream very high quality at low bit rates, especially when we're talking about things like news conferences in the German election project, right? A talking head, we can push that at a much lower bit rate if there's not bandwidth available. But certainly in the sports example, where might be able to jack in or get 5G, you're going to get an excellent video signal coming into the system.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, to answer from the Blackbird side, essentially, we're going to work with whatever we get given. I can answer a second question at the same time here. Essentially, in this scenario, we're looking at LiveU Matrix sending or providing the RTMP feeds or whatever format is necessary into the Blackbird encode function. And then what we're doing actually is we're normalizing that content into a standard for browser editing. And obviously it's the format that we're using there, and that's our unique and patented technology that allows us to do advanced editing within that browser interface. But the important thing for us is it doesn't matter whether we're getting a 20 meg stream or whether we're reading from a very high bitrate file or growing file or anything like that. We edit, making essentially metadata decisions, and then when we publish a piece of content or we produce a file out of that, we go back to the source. So we're going back to that stream manifest or mezzanine that's been provided from Matrix, or we go back to this original stored file. So we can actually output anything up to and sometimes even above the bit rate or the quality of the source there. Which means, for our outputs, as we look to the few different ways of using Blackbird today, it can be anything from a low bit rate, H.264 going to social media, up to a very high bit rate, MXF, RAP, DNX, or something like that, that's going to go back for broadcast playout or OTT and VOD and so on as well. Excellent. So, Chris, I'm going to chuck a couple of extra ones at you here. A question about contribution encoders. Which ones do you like? I think is the short question.
Yeah, so the Matrix platform today can work with any of our existing contribution encoders that are in the fields. So customer, we've been in business for 15 years. There's a lot of contribution encoders that are out there. Most of our customers have migrated to our HEVC product lines. So they're using the LU300, the LU600, or the LU800. The LU800 is even capable of multi-camera streaming. So you could do 4, inputs into the LU800 and stream a multi-camera shoot back up into the Matrix platform for distribution or for capture and management within the Blackbird platform. So virtually any LiveU encoder today Just a preview of the roadmap, we are working on the ability to ingest non-LiveU sources very soon. And so we'll have the ability to basically take a feed from virtually any encoder, either via RTMP or SRT as the input source into Matrix, and then once again, route and manage that feed right within the Matrix platform.
Excellent. Cool. So we've got another question in the chat here. And please don't, if you've got anything cropping up, just chuck it in the Q&A or in the chat. That's absolutely fine. Question about the time it takes to export clip segments here from the Blackbird side. I mean, essentially, if I'll start at the beginning there, everything that comes into Blackbird from a user point of view is growing. So whether we've just seen a file or whether Chris is sending me a stream, you're working on it while it, as soon as we see it, and you're generally, as I said in the demo, clipping just a few seconds behind live. When you publish, the publish activity doesn't happen within the editor or the user; it goes back to that core infrastructure. So the question about how long it takes is a bit of an open-ended one, because it depends to a degree on what the source is, what the infrastructure is, obviously what the codec and bitrate and all sorts of things like that are. There's a general rule, however, we would say it should be around or better than half of the actual clip duration. So when we've looked at some of our customers, particularly we had a conversation I remember a while ago with the NRL in Australia talking about turnaround times for social media. They wanted to get clips out within 2 minutes of them happening. If we're looking at a 10-20 second social media clip, that can not just be rendered, it can actually be on the platform in 30 seconds or 45 seconds or something like that. So very, very fast clipping and publishing from there. The clip is asked as an example here, a 1080p 50, 1 hour clip. You might be looking at 20 or 30 minutes for that to be come out. But as I said, it very much depends on the bit rate and the codec and multiple other things there as well. Okay, so Chris, we've got, this might be one for me actually. Can metadata be sent from the location to be used in assisting editing, so caption information and locations and things like that? The answer, I'll answer from me, and Chris, just wave if you want to talk about metadata from your end at all. But yeah, essentially, Blackbird has a data API that allows any data to be pushed in and aligned to media with time code. So that can be caption metadata. We can have captions imported and metadata-based caption export as well. But it can also be any type of completely custom, essentially logging metadata that allows events, scene information and things like that to be pushed in, as you say, so we can see what maybe who's talking, what the location is, and so on. So yeah, there is quite a lot of work that we've done just in the last year or so around really improving how data is used and making that a key part of the workflow.
Yeah, and I'll just tag on the end there. From our perspective, we have the ability to insert basically metadata as a sidecar file that would exist from the unit all the way through into Matrix. I don't know that we've linked the Matrix metadata directly into the Blackbird metadata, but it exists, right? So it's definitely possible to bridge that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to, so we've got an interesting question here, which I'm going to answer by stealing the screen share, Chris.
Sure.
A question in the Q&A: can we have a demo user login to test? And the answer to that is generally yes. We're more than happy to let people have a look at Blackbird and get hands-on in the tool. If you're interested in, and we want to set something like that up, say drop us an email. It's commercial@blackbird.video. I'll put that up with the thank you slide as well, because I know we're kind of running towards the end of the time there, and we may get some people start to drop off the webinar. But I've got one more question I want to ask Chris before we go to you, and it's how big can this scale? So are there any limitations around the number of streams that make handle, or how does that scale up?
I mean, that's really the beauty of the infrastructure is you could have, a theoretically unlimited number of incoming, units streaming to Matrix, and then, routing and distributed accordingly. You can use Matrix as a funnel where you'd actually be curating what would be getting ingested into, a subset of Blackbird edge servers. In our case, where the German elections, we needed 20 something at one point. 22. I think was the max number that we had hit. But there was no limit there, right? They could have said, oh, well, we've got 50 now, or we've got 75, or, you know, we've got things that are popping up, and we would have the ability to very quickly add, you know, the capacity is just there, right? So it's nearly instantaneous in terms of being able to increase that capacity. Excellent.
Yeah, no, it's you know, same from the Blackbird side. I know I noticed during this session that every single question that we both answered, we're very well aligned in terms of, you know, how we approached setting these kind of solutions up. From our side, you know, essentially the ingest side of it scales as far as you need to go. So there's no limitation towards the amount of content you can have access to, the number of live streams that can come into an account, or even indeed the number of users that you can have editing at any one time. It's completely scalable in there. Now, in an interesting move towards the end of a webinar, I just saw the number of participants go up. So I'll answer one or two other questions that's come in. And if you have to drop off, thank you very much for your time here. I just got one about multi-cloud support. Chris, you mentioned working with AWS and Oracle and other providers. Certainly from the Blackbird side, we've got customers within Google Cloud and Azure and AWS, within partners of ours like Tata Communications data centers, and also within their own private data centers as well. So there's, you know, we're totally agnostic really in terms of where the media can sit and where that infrastructure sits. A question here as well about tie-ins to Newsroom computer systems, so iNews and EMPS and Octopus and Delete and so on. The short answer from the Blackbird side is that that's not normally a touch point we see. So what we do is that we obviously read from video storage and asset management infrastructure. We can take asset metadata with that. We can take media-based metadata, as we discussed already. And when we publish, we can actually publish with completely custom and complex metadata sidecars. We saw in the demo, you know, contextualized pop-ups when we do a drag and drop for publish. So what we tend to do is actually see Blackbird as a tool that sits on top of the media and asset infrastructure. So we're looking at, you know, might be a live stream management tool like Matrix, but it could also be an asset management platform in the more traditional sense. And we would normally hand back off into that video infrastructure. And that asset management tool, or that underlying video playout infrastructure, is normally then what is represented into the MOS-based Newsroom system, or whatever that might be. So the short answer is not directly, but the long answer is essentially yes, can absolutely play a part within Newsroom workflows and tie in through asset management into Newsroom systems. Excellent. All right. Well, listen, we're 5 minutes over, so I think we should stop talking. I thank everyone again for attending. We always appreciate your time. Obviously, there's a fair few webinars and virtual events on the go, so it's great to get so many people turning up and listening in. I thank you, Chris, for joining us. Thanks for your time.
Molly. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. It always is. And as I've said, if you want any more information, either on LiveU Matrix or any of the other LiveU solutions, on Blackbird, or of course on a combination of the two, please do just get in touch. We're more happy to get on the phone and look at this in depth. Thanks very much.
Cheers.